every day is the same. Every day I need to get up and I need to work and I'm doing the things that I have to do. Like those are things I have to do. I think when you live like that for so long, for me, I feel like I've lost purpose. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth and becoming the very best version of yourself. It's another episode.
Another great one.
Another great one. How are you feeling today, Cesar?
Pretty good. Had an amazing weekend with friends and also a little date night yesterday.
Yeah.
Today is Sunday when we're recording this. And it was good. It was really good. Had a good week last week. Isn't it crazy how we're almost at the end of February?
Yeah, I just feel like it's already going by so fast.
Yeah.
I also feel like me and Cesar always get in this predicament, especially on the weekends where we want to go and try a new place in Nashville. And we end up not being able to decide. So then we go somewhere that we know that we'll like, and therefore we don't try something new because we're afraid of like not liking it, or like also just trying to find something budget friendly, because there are a lot of great restaurants here, but some of them are expensive and not just like a regular Saturday meal, at least not for us. Like we're not on that level. We could drop hundreds of dollars on a Saturday. So
yeah, no, it's interesting. It's crazy because we've been here for a year, and now I feel like whenever we do go somewhere, or even thinking about going somewhere new, we have that like regret of, what if we don't like it? So then we don't end up going somewhere new.
Because it also has to do with like, oh, we're gonna spend money to eat out. Like I want to make sure we enjoy it, because otherwise it feels like similar to like it's kind of funny that we're talking about this because we just got back from lunch and we did try somewhere new because we weren't planning on going to lunch. We were doing something else. Then we got coffee and then we passed this place and I was like, that sounds good. And so we go with our friends who are also with us and we eat. And I thought like my initial reaction was like, oh, this place is going to be so good.
Yeah.
And honestly, the best part about it was their sangria. Like the food itself was not great. It wasn't bad, but it was supposed to be like tacos and Mexican food, but it wasn't authentic.
Yeah. Long story short, because this isn't a food review channel, but yeah, it's did not meet my expectations from what I originally thought. I was like, this is gonna be good.
I had high hopes in the beginning. Same. I was like, oh no, like I think this place is
and it
good.
Was mediocre at best.
Yeah, it was mediocre.
Yeah.
Not the worst food, not the best food. Yeah. But yeah, so it's been a nice weekend. I still am very much exhausted. I feel like I haven't slept in days, and I have. So like that's what's crazy. But before we get into it, like how are you feeling, Cesar? How are you doing? You know, other than like obviously yes, it's the weekend. How has everything been with you?
I think it's been pretty good. I mean, finally recording I actually just recorded my first video for my YouTube channel yesterday.
Well, not your first video.
My first video of 2024.
YouTube. Yeah.
Because like last year was just insane, but I want to get on the schedule of at least having one video a month, if not more than one, obviously. Pride myself to make sure the content's good. So I obviously want to make sure it's good enough for me and thus being good enough for my audience. So besides that, I think we've been pretty good. It's been an interesting month, I'll tell you that. Like a lot of stuff at work, also personally, like with me and you. I mean, there's not anything bad's going on, but
I was like, is there a
yeah, no, it's just more of it's insane. We're just talking about how it's been a year now that we've been here, and I was just thinking of like, man, it's been crazy how like we planned on coming here last year, and how time just like flew by. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I am okay.
You're okay.
Yeah, no, I think kind of something I wanted to talk about this episode actually was inspired by a conversation I had with a client this week. So I was on a client call. I work in marketing, and I'm in a client-facing role, so I talk to my clients frequently over video, and, I ask them, how they're doing, how's everything going. And I was on a call with one of my clients, and my client success manager was also on the call with me. And the client mentioned, he was like, "Oh, we're surviving." And then my client success manager goes, "Oh, like surviving and thriving." And he was like, "Surviving." And I was like, relatable. Yeah, I feel that exact way. I didn't say that, but I was thinking that. I was like, yeah, I honestly just feel like we're surviving, we're not thriving right now. And not in the context of like work, but more so like personally, I just feel like I've been living because that's what you have to do. And like you have to do things out of pure survival. Like you have to work and you have to, eat because those are things you have to do in order to survive. And there's really, for me, I've been feeling kind of stuck in this survival mode. Have you ever felt like that?
Like in your job, like you just feel like you're not, like you obviously had expectations, or you have expectations of how
I'm not talking about like in a job, but like
or just in
just
general.
in life in general, like being like in this survival mode.
I feel like that kind of right now, I guess I would say.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I mean, because
I say really as if I didn't just say that I was feeling that way.
yeah, I mean, again, being 100% honest here, I feel like there's so many things that I would love to do personally, and because of the situation and predicament that we're in, I feel like I'm not like thriving in those areas that I want to actually be thriving in, if that makes sense. Yeah, like for example, like my YouTube channel, good content creation in general, my own personal brand, if you want to call it that, whatever people call it nowadays, usually personal brand, their business or whatever the case is. Last year, ideally, I had a plan, move here, get settled in. Work got crazy, got kind of put that on the back burner. Now I've really pushed myself to, and also you pushed me to like shoot one video this weekend and publish it. I've been super into like just like overthinking these sorts of videos and content, just so I can get back into the flow of things, because there's a huge opportunity I have there, right? So like that, for example, like I felt like that channel is like surviving on its own. I'm not really putting anything out there on there. So, yeah, so like that. And then there's also a bunch of other things that I can think of, whether it's like things that I would love to do with, or not with people, obviously, but obviously with people, but also like things that I loved to do when I was in Vegas, when we were moving, when we lived out there, that I feel like I haven't been able to do now, obviously because of other reasons, like money's one thing, time is another thing.
Money and time, I feel like those are always
it's just like, but I mean, I guess like if I'm being 100% honest with myself, I'd be lying to say that it's just that it's that I don't make the time for it. That's probably 100% the reason why. So a lot of it does have to do with myself, not anyone else. It's just me not putting the time and the effort, and also the resources, right, to it. But again, due to the lack thereof resources, it's kind of those kind of things have been put on the back burner. Also too, like creatively, when it came to this whole YouTube channel, it's not that I got burnt out by creating content on YouTube, because I would totally never say I've never been burnt out creating content. It's always been what is the next idea and like what I think it is. And then I get feedback from people like yourself or anyone else that I might be talking to these ideas about. And then I overthink those ideas and don't do them.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I mean, I don't want to have this turn into a whole Caesar's podcast. It's obviously our podcast, but I had an idea for this video that we're doing now. And I tentatively love to like list everything I want to talk about on a doc, like everything, like all the key points. And in this case, I was like, you know what? I'm overthinking it. I'm going to take literally a whole day just to write everything I want to talk about. Let me just read like the key points of the video that I want to discuss, and not ad lib, because I'm not talking out of my ass here, but I'm actually I actually know about the device I'm talking about. In this case, the podcasting equipment that we use here, and specifically the Rodecaster that's down here. I know about it because I've been using it. So I talked about the key points that I think are great about it and why it's probably one of the best things you can buy for podcasting. And I did it. Like I obviously had experience with the device, so it's always easier for me to talk about something that I actually tangibly own and used. Whereas whenever I made a video about a camera that I never owned, it was always a little more difficult. But
'cause you gotta research.
yeah, because I have to like do a deep dive and all of that.
Yeah, I think that's like a good point. Well, not really about the camera. That has
No,
nothing
but
to do.
yeah.
But I think that it goes back to like, yeah, we have to like make time, but also for me personally, something I struggle with is even when I have time, weekends, most of the time you have to yourself if you're working a typical 9 to 5 job or, like Monday through Friday job at least. And I find myself on the weekends drained to the point I don't even want to do the things that I love to do. So like reading is one of those things. I've been reading a book, but I've been getting through it much slower because even when I have the time per se, I don't feel great. Like I don't feel motivated to do quite literally anything at all. And for me, that was something, it has been something that I've struggled with because I've always been a highly self-motivated person. And so when I start to feel this need to just not want to do anything at all, I feel very lazy. I feel guilty. I feel, for one, that I'm making excuses for myself. But at the same time, I'm very exhausted. Like an exhaustion that just doesn't go away. And I think part of it is that I'm just kind of in this autopilot mode of every day is the same. Every day I need to get up and I need to work and I'm doing the things that I have to do. Like those are things I have to do. And I think when you live like that for so long, you start to get, for me, I feel like I've lost purpose. Like I know deep down that I have purpose and that there's more to life, but I feel like I've lost my purpose. And it's not even that. I think when I would try to explain this to people, it's not that I don't enjoy what I do for work. Like I do very much love what I do for work, but sometimes I sit back and I'm so exhausted and you just want to break and you just wonder when you're feeling this way, what is this all for? Like what am I even doing it for outside of survival? Like you always think of like, what would I do if these weren't the obstacles? Like what would I do if I had, money and didn't have to be like, how would I spend my time? What would I put my effort into? How, and like, I start to think like that, and try to figure out what am I doing and what can I do to get out of it. And, I'm not an expert. Survival mode is a term frequently used, I think, when, in therapy and it has to do with your brain. So I was looking like stuff up about survival mode though, and I thought this was interesting. So it said, I have to find the source again. Oh, it's from the cpgrc.org. Child Guidance Resource Centers is what it says, but I think that this applies to adults too. But it said that it can be hard to know when you're in survival brain, especially during prolonged periods of communal trauma, like during a global pandemic or after a tragic death or civil unrest. For adults, there's signs that you might be in like survival mode. So a couple of those signs are like lack of focus, changes in memory, fatigue, emotionally reactive. So like you're finding yourself getting way more upset about things, forgetting to care for your basic needs, and like you're more impulsive. But I always think it's interesting too of like how your mindset, because to me it feels like it's a whole mental state, right? It's always interesting to me how your mindset can also affect you physically.
It's like your mind is everything. Like if you can, I know there's studies that have been done, like, that you probably read about this too, is that if you can train your mind to like think positively, not all the time, obviously, but to think of good things, also good outcomes, as well as the future in a good and positive way, while keeping in mind reality. I'm not saying go and focus on like, toxic positivity, which we've covered in a different thing, in a different podcast. But it, like whether it's affirmations, obviously some people use prayer as an example of this, and it works for people. It helps them like get out of a rut, or in this case, it's think in a way that they feel like they can help them thrive in the future or in in the moment now. I can like those sorts of things, and those sorts of studies have shown like in the past that like it can obviously help you, especially if you feel like you've lost purpose. I mean, I know a lot of people tend to, obviously depending on their religious background, like if they are agnostic, they can tend to, not everyone, I'm just saying, people can tend to tie like reaching a certain goal in your career as like purpose. Like my purpose in life is to be a head doctor. I don't know, be like the lead in design, or to be like the world's best rapper or whatever it is. Like those are people's purposes, and they, you know, they you know, hit the ground running, and they do everything they can to reach that goal. And then once they reach that goal, what's next? You know, and I feel like with us,
I think like in that case though, like you might, and I don't know from experience because I've never experienced that, but you might feel like you're living out your purpose. Like if you truly feel inside, like for instance, you truly feel like I was made to be a performer or something, and you do that, I imagine that is very fulfilling because you're doing what you always, you know, dreamed of doing or felt like inside of you was your purpose. I think my biggest thing is that I've never felt like I had a direct calling to one thing.
yeah,
Like I feel like I've always struggled to be satisfied in that aspect of not knowing what is my purpose. What if I'm like, I was always so concerned. I remember this vividly as a kid, as a teenager, of pursuing the wrong thing. I'm like, what if this is not what I'm meant to do? So it became very hard for me to make decisions because I always felt like no matter what I was going to do, it could be the wrong decision. And mind you, I didn't really grow up religious either. So I wanted to believe though that God had like a plan for my life. And so whenever I would make these decisions, I'm like, what if this isn't God's plan and I'm doing this purely because, you know, it's what I think I should do, but is it what I should do? And I started like, I still do. I question myself of like, what am I supposed to be doing? Is this the right thing to do? I don't really know anymore. And that's just like, it's confusing, you know, because I think even when you like are a person of faith, like it's not as simple of like, you know, at least for me. And like, you know, I went through like RCIA in college, but even for me, it's not as simple as praying about it or, you know, finding your purpose, not of this world, but like in God. Like that's always been a struggle for me because at the end of the day, like we live here on this earth and we've got to do something. Like I said, we have to survive, you know, but like I'm more concerned with like not just surviving, but how do I thrive? Because I can survive. Yeah, I can do like what it takes to make ends meet, but what kind of life is that? You know, we've been kind of talking about that too. Like, it's like, what kind of life is it to just purely be surviving, but not enjoying like the life that you're living? It's great. Like, and the thing is, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining like my life is awful because I don't think it is. But because I think to myself, you know, yes, I have food to eat. I have a roof over my head. I have the funds to be able to have these things for myself. And even like years ago, I didn't know that I would. I didn't know if we'd have our own place, or, you know, how I'd make ends meet. So I'm glad that like I have these things, but I always say to myself, there's got to be more to this. I can't just continue to live where I'm just, again, like just surviving. I want to figure out how do I enjoy the life that I was, you know, given.
I mean, I guess I would throw a question out at you here in this case, being very vulnerable here. What would you say, or what would you need to be doing, or where would you need to be in order for you to like look at your environment or whatever the case is, for you to know that I'm thriving right now? Like, is it a certain type of thing you're doing at work? Is
The
it
thing is, it's not one thing. Like, I don't think it's one thing.
So
I
what
don't
is it,
think
though?
that's always been the problem in my life. It's not like, oh, this one thing changes and I think that everything will be okay. I think that for me, it's not a thing, but a feeling. And something I crave and I talk about this all the time is balance. Because I feel like what happens is in my life is things are always out of balance. I've been in places where like I spend way too much time working and not enough time living, and then like it obviously trickles into my personal life because I'm tired. I don't have time to do the things I want to do, and I think in my, you know, utopia of a life that I would like to live and want to like work towards is that balance of like I still want to work. I still want to, you know, have a job I love, but I also want that separation of on the side of this, like on the side, I have, you know, this time to pursue into things like my goals, my other goals and ambitions. You know, me and you talk a lot about, you know, business ideas we have or things we want to do. And obviously, all of them require us to have some way to fund it. And, you know, we've talked about coffee because me and you are very passionate about coffee. And, or we've talked about, you know, starting our own things like being creators because that's something I do feel I identify with is like I want to share with the world like a piece of me and like what I can create and what I can offer the world. And I would want more time to focus on that. So, you know, I've talked a lot about like with you in our personal conversations of like if there was a day where like you could like obviously provide for the both of us, I wouldn't sit here and just lay around the house. I would imagine that I would put more effort and more time into just uncovering what really makes me happy because I feel like I don't even have the time to do that now of like what am I truly seeking, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd look at like it's not that I would be like, oh, I just would never work again. It's like no, I would like put more effort into defining what that looks like for me and what I want to do. And yeah, I just think that like right now I don't have that and I can't have that because I need to survive. I need to figure out it's like yeah, I just need to survive. So there's not time. Well, not time. It just doesn't feel like I can thrive.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Be 100% honest with me.
Oh God, I'm scared.
Have you ever been bored?
Bored?
When's the last time that you can remember when you were 100% bored? Like there was, you weren't on your phone, you weren't looking at TikToks, videos, listening to music, you weren't reading a book, maybe because the book, you read all the books. You didn't have any sort of electronic device to keep you, you know, wired or, in this case, distracted from being bored, right?
Yeah.
Like, when's the last time, honestly, that you were like bored?
I can like remember because I was probably in high school, and even though like we had like phones and stuff, I think this is like the most bored I could have been is like I didn't have like one of those families that like went on vacations during spring break. So like when all my friends are gone, all I could do was sit at home. I didn't have a call either. So I would say like that's what I would say I was bored is like I literally had nothing to do because in high school I didn't want to be on my phone all the time. I wanted to hang out.
Yeah,
with
obviously you would
people.
hang out with friends.
And
Maybe
like
you
so
had
if I didn't
whatever.
have that, like I just
Yeah.
felt like this is incredibly boring. Even when I was doing something, I felt like it was boring.
Would you say that when you were bored, like where would your mind go? Like would it go into these places when you would think of positive or maybe give yourself ideas about what you wanted to do with your life or what you wanted to do that day or that week or that year or that month or like think of plans or ideas to not be bored or obviously in this case you would want to go find a friend.
Ideas to not be
Yeah,
bored.
like you would go, oh, let me go find a friend, you know, to hang out with or let me go like
Truth be told, I also didn't have a lot of friends, so it wasn't like I think though that's my other problem amongst all of my list of issues. No, is that I thrive in a constant state of distraction of like meaning that I always have something to do because if I am bored, it's not usually like what can I do to make myself unbored. It's usually like negative. It's usually not good. Like I don't like where my mind goes like when I don't have anything else to think about.
I mean, the reason I bring that up, it isn't a segue into this conversation to something else. It's that the fact that I do think you need to be more bored, because I feel like out of boredom comes these great like epiphanies or ideas that you might have that can lead you to realizing that, hey, this is what I think my life would look like, or my ideal scenario would look like for me to be, thriving, or maybe find the time for you to think, or for you to plan your week or your month or whatever the case is, which I'm not saying you're not doing already. I feel like nowadays, especially, we're so connected to things. Like, we're obviously shooting a podcast right now in hopes of getting people to listen to it when they have time, right? And growing an audience, all of that thing. But I do feel like it's still necessary for us to be bored, in the sense that it helps us, thrive and in the future, right? In order to like prevent us from like thinking of just surviving all the time. I think boredom can help us get there, like being like having nothing to do, like no temptations of getting on your phone. It's just sitting down, staring at a wall, or in this case, like, going outside and like staring out and just enjoying life. Like when we go, for example, when we go on our walks. But
I don't consider that boring.
That's not boring.
I don't think boring is a word, but I think like disconnected is more like, it's like, we need time where it's kind of just you and your mind, and like that's why I do go on walks, during the day too, especially if I'm struggling a little more that day. I'll take Nash on a longer walk and be like, okay, like try to get my mind right. But I don't think that's boredom. I think it's more just being able to disconnect. And I think there's a larger conversations you can have with that too, because I think there's a point where you can disconnect too much. Like, I think the connection, for instance, something that I also do, which is quite contradicting, is that I tend to also self-isolate. When I'm going through a hard time, I don't tend to reach out to people. I tend to try to figure it out myself, and also I just really don't feel like talking to people. I don't get the urge to be like, let me share everything I'm feeling with someone else and like bring them down. I just keep it to myself. And that's like not a good thing, because I think, again, I've talked about this a couple times on the podcast. We were meant for like community. And, oftentimes when you share like how you feel, or even if it's not like bad things, but ideas, it can spark like even better ideas or like collaboration. It's really good. So I think that there's a perfect, again, I think everything comes back to balance of, disconnecting when you need to be inspired again, but also not keeping yourself too far from, I guess, life itself. And, we are very connected. And I was thinking to myself earlier this week, whenever I work, I listen to either podcast or I've been doing music recently, like instrumentals, to help with like to help with like focusing. But sometimes I even have like a show in the background, because I'm not really listening to it, but I like to have like the almost like white noise to me.
Yeah.
And it's weird, because I feel like I need that. Like, I can't work without that, because then it gets too quiet, and it's like, how do I like, I don't know. Have you ever felt like that? Like, I feel like I now have to be like, I don't want to say distracted, because I'm not really distracted with like the podcast playing, but like I have to have something else going on in order to focus my mind on other things.
Yeah, like you have to, like you said, you described it as white noise. It's some sort of ambient audio, or it's stimulating your mind in the sense, right? I think in some way, right?
Yeah. So constant stimulation. Yeah, stimulation.
Yeah. So would you say that you wouldn't be good at like living in, or not even living in this case, but just vacationing out in the middle of nowhere that's completely disconnected and has no sort of like unnatural noisemakers? Like in this case, it's like obviously your phone or video or whatever the case is, like a movie. You feel like you go a little crazy, like when it comes to like not having something to listen to, because you just have to have that. I don't think I'd
go crazy, but I think like like when I think of like peaceful, like a
Yeah.
peaceful like time of like that's disconnected, I think about when we went to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't quiet by any means, but the sounds were like of the town and like of the people and the horses' little trotting feet in the pueblo and
The dogs.
yeah, the dogs on the roofs. And like that's like I feel like that was disconnected because I wasn't really on my phone when we were there, but like we were just surrounded by people that like it felt like more communal.
Yeah.
But like we're still very disconnected. You know, we weren't in a major city.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't very close to like any like retailer. Like we were getting like snacks from like the
Corner store.
Yeah, like and it's not even when we say corner store, it's not like a
Someone's
traditional
house.
Yeah,
that, that converted like a small piece of it into a little store.
I think of like that because that's and that I remember that trip because it was so eye-opening for me because it felt so simple, like such a simple life and a good life. And I think when I come back to the United States, we complicate things so much. And I think there's also a part of me that I focus so much on the things that I want that it's very hard for me to enjoy what I currently have, because what I currently have is good too. There's comes back to a balance of knowing that you want to strive for more, but also being perfectly content with where you are. I think that that's a really hard balance because you need motivation to work for more, but you also need to be grateful for what you have. And like, you have to almost think to yourself, if this is all I ever have, I will be happy, while also knowing that you do want more. I think two things have to be true at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about that because, I've just been having a lot of thoughts, and I just feel like I'm like living in this constant state of, I just need to make it to the next day. You know, we were at dinner last night at Cheesecake Factory. I don't know why I like Cheesecake Factory so much. But I was talking to you about how when I wake up in the morning, I'm instantly looking forward to the end of the day to where I can go back to sleep because I'm that tired. And like, I'm just, again, like life feels like I'm just a cog in the machine of life. And it can make you feel like you don't have purpose. And like, I honestly get scared to say this because, like, for one, like, I have a job and I don't want them to think, like, what is wrong with this girl, Sunny? And also to think that, like, I'm not a motivated person. But, yeah, I was like, you just feel like, especially, like, we watched that movie last night. What's it called? What was it called? The movie we watched?
Leave the World Behind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like end of time scenario of like, and I was telling you how in the grand scheme of things, if something that awful happened, I will have lived my life thinking, what the fuck was this all for? Why was I stressed about this call with a client? Or why did we feel like these were fire drills when it's not? When there are like so many big problems, sometimes like I feel like there's all these things happening in the world, but I have to sit here and focus on what feels like such a tiny thing. Like, and to me, like, it's not a tiny thing. And again, I love the work that I do, but like when you really put it into perspective, then it kind of messes with my mind too, because it's like, does any of this matter? Like, it matters because it does, but it doesn't, like, when you put it into the context of other situations.
I do think that, discussing the movie, for those of you that haven't watched, it's like an apocalyptic take on like what would happen if like the U.S. undercame a cyber attack and a bunch of other things that like basically disrupted the U.S. in a way, like this crazy way. Highly recommend watching it. However, I do think that everything that we do in our lifetime, from the moment we're born to the moment we die, is important. And whether it's short-lived, whether it's for 10, 15 years and then something tragic happens to whoever it is, right? I'm pretty sure, somebody who died unexpectedly because of cancer or tragic accident, but they still did something important in your life that that either reminds you of them or whatever the case is. So I do think that everything we do, whether it's our job, whether it's the people we hang around with, that we do end up doing something positive for the most part, I think, in their lives and in our lives. So I do think everything we do is important, even in the cases of the an apocalyptic scenario. Because I think of the Roman Empire, of like, or any other like distant civilization that has, that rose and fell and rose again, or just ceased to exist. That there's people living during those difficult times that like they knew of war going on, yet they still took their kids to school, or they got up in the morning to go find food or buy food or work because they knew they had to survive, right? Sure, they might not be thriving because they are like living in a wartime scenario. Like I just think of like the people that live in like, the Middle East, and where their backyards have been in a constant state of war since like 1900s, right? 1930s, right? So, and yet they're still out there, like they didn't give up, and just like, I'm like, if my life is just to live, in war or in these tragic things, like why bother living? Like they still, they either decided to leave or whatever the case is. But I still think that like they didn't give up. I think, I think that's why I'm like, when you say like, oh, I'd rather give up and just go in a hole and die. Like she literally said this.
Well, I didn't say it like that. I just told Caesar. Caesar was talking about how, what, like we were like hypotheticals.
Yeah. Like tomorrow, type of thing.
Michael Scott, hypothetical means not real. But like, yeah, we were talking hypothetical of like what we'd do. And I was like, I already feel like I'm in this like state of survival mode. I was like, as bad as it sounds, I was like, I don't know how well I would do in a scenario that's actually like, we survive. Like, if we had to
like get out right now, get in the car and leave,
just survive and like figure it out, because
Yeah.
That gives me so much anxiety, and like I was not built for that.
I think you have high cortisone levels. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I think I just have high everything. I don't know. But yeah, I was like, it just, to me, I was like, that just feels, and it's hard to, obviously, I don't want to ever have to be in that situation. I think it changes once you're in that situation of like, do I want to fight? Do I want to keep going? And I think, again, that goes back to purpose. I think if you have a really strong sense that there is purpose, even in like the awful things that are happening, then the answer probably is yes. Like, no, I don't want to lose this. I want to keep going. I want to figure it out. I have to believe. I think some people just have to believe it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, I admire people who have that just sense of belief. Like, it'll get better. Like, it sucks right now, but it will get better. I think, but it goes back to purpose. And I think sometimes that's where I struggle most. So it's like, I just don't know what I'm working towards. Like I know all the things I would love to do and that I want to work towards, but I don't know. Like it's so hard to describe what it feels, what I feel like right now. But like I do think that I'm living out of pure like survival. Like I talking about how like this feeling like and this like being in this type of mode like frequently also like, yes, you do have higher cortisol levels, but it affects you physically. Like, I told you like my hair falls out all the freaking time, or like what's it called, I'm tired all the time. Like, this is how like it affects me. I just feel like, and the thing is I can cognitively understand like what's happening, but it also feels like such a like, it feels like I have this is dramatic, a bomb strapped to me, right? And like I know the code potentially, but like I have the numbers jumbled up. So I know the 4 numbers that are the code to like disable it, right? But like the numbers are jumbled, and you're just like, I don't know how to do this. I can't do this, and you're just telling yourself all these things while you could also be figuring out what to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I'm at. It's like, I know that I have the power to change things, but I'm also like just fighting with myself in my mind about why I can't, or like giving myself all these reasons. So like, while I could be doing the things, I'm just having an argument with myself.
I do think it's not a bad thing for you to feel the way you do about anxiety-inducing events that are hypothetical or could be true one day. Who knows, right? In my opinion, I think, at least for me, like it's not like I think about the world ending tomorrow. It's interesting to note that we're obviously at mass today, and one of the things the priest said during the reading was live every day like your life is going to end tomorrow, because you got to think about your soul, right? Mm-hmm. And like live every day like you're gonna live forever in regards to like feeding your body, like actual like food to stay alive, right? But when it comes to your soul, like to always think about possibly I'm going to die tomorrow. So like how am I morally speaking, how am I really doing like in the eyes of God? Like am I helping people? Like all these other things, right? So like to live that tomorrow's your last day. And I think for a lot of people, yeah, like it's a scary thing to think about, that we don't know when we're going to, die, right? But I think it reminds us that we're human at the end of the day, I think. And in the same scenario of like, yeah, sure, like maybe we might not be thriving right now. Ideally we might not be in the home.
I honestly feel
like
you're thriving though.
I mean,
I feel like and I don't like want to compare us to, and like I know that you obviously have like your own struggles and your own like feelings and emotions, but I feel like you like, yes, like you're not doing everything you want, but like in a sense you're like, yeah, like I could do this. Like you're not in this place where like, oh, I can't do this forever.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the struggles that I have are more like personally, in the sense that like I see like things that I'm doing wrong, whether it's like an issue that I'm dealing with at work because I'm trying to like find a solution for it long term, and we're doing this short term solution for it, and it like really annoys me that like there's a better solution to this. Like it just writing notes down, teaming up with people, working with people to like find a better solution to what we're doing at work, or if it's content creation, like we've like gotten in arguments, healthy arguments about like even the way
they probably weren't the healthiest.
that we shoot like on this podcast. Like I have but like
we have like two very different perspectives. Like I'm very picky about how things look, and Caesar's, the thing is like, and this like goes probably like I'm not as trusting as a person as I can be, but like Caesar's an expert in this stuff. I by no means am an expert, but I have opinions and thoughts, and Caesar and I will often get like into arguments about like, why won't you just let me try this, or like, so
and it's just like it's those things that I think obviously make us different and complement each other, right? Because then you make me think of other ideas that I would have never thought of. It's always good to have someone you can talk to and have different insight. Someone that doesn't agree with you is a good thing, I think, in my opinion. Makes you think of obviously different things. So in my perspective, like me thriving is like successfully having a business on YouTube to the point where we can, and even this, right? This is another business, right? This podcast, like we end up growing it and making it into a big thing. Having our coffee business that we've always talked about, whether it's beans we sell or a shop or whatever the case is. Me doing my things with the tech stuff that I do, or other consulting stuff that I'll do in the future, or even at work, like growing and obviously building out another YouTube channel or another source of revenue for the business. All of those things, like for me, that's thriving, is like, oh, I successfully did this thing, and like thus like equals thriving. Like for me, it's a lot of, it's interesting that I really think about it. It's a lot of external validation. And it's funny because like I'm not a big like, I need external validation from you or from anyone else. It's more of
but
like,
it helps.
It does. It's like, it's good when someone tells you you're doing a good job. Not
because I've seen like you light up when like, you've been told that like you did something really cool, or like, I mean, imagine like you just had like your annual review. Imagine that felt awesome. Good. It's like, that's always like, okay, like I think that also.
But even then, as I was receiving this annual review and I was told that I was doing well, deep down inside, I'm like, I can do better. Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, I know I can do better and I can continue to improve myself. So that's the thing, is like for me, thriving is continually trying to like one up myself every time.
Yeah.
Which which hurts me when I can't, because I feel like either, again, I'm making an excuse for myself, or it's some other external factor, or it's just the fact that in life as it is right now, I can't do everything that I used to do on my own.
Yeah.
I have other responsibilities and other
Yeah.
things that I have
I
to
mean, life has changed. I
Yeah.
think it's interesting that, when I've had performance reviews, and we do quarterly reviews where I work. And even when people have told me I'm doing really well, it should make me feel good. And for a second it does, but I think I also worry about disappointing them in the future of like, okay,
Yeah.
like I was here, but what if I fall, what if I slip backwards, like what if I don't perform as well, or, that's always been my fear, or that like they're just not telling me the truth, which most likely isn't the truth, isn't ever a scenario you're going to be in. No one's going to tell you you're doing a great job and really think that you suck. But, well, hopefully not. But something I struggle with is even when people tell me I'm doing a great job or that I'm good at something, I just struggle to believe it. And like I'm way harder on myself because I think I'm way hard on myself because I don't want to disappoint people. So if I already have like this high expectation of me, I've talked about this before. If I have a high expectation of myself, I sometimes assume people have that same expectation for me. And so I get worried that like I'm letting people down because I feel like I haven't performed or I haven't, done as well as I wanted to. Or even, I've had previous teachers or people I've known in the past, connect with me more recently, be like, oh, you're doing so great. And it's like, yeah, from the outside looking in, like, it's great, but I worry even about letting people like that down of like, oh, they see me in this way and like I need to be this person who can have it all together. I'm like, I just feel like the most like discombobulated person, that like I'm so like on different ends of like, yes, I have these things. I have a job that I like. I have, an appointment, we're going to get married eventually. But I was like, it doesn't like, I still feel like so, I don't know, like empty, or just that I'm not doing everything I need to be doing. And at the same time, so exhausted, and I feel so lazy because I'm like, "Ah, we're given all this time, and what am I doing? What am I wasting? Why am I not spending every other waking moment that I have working on building the things I've talked about building?" And yeah, I don't know. It's very hard because then you're just like, what do I do? And then I'm at the same time I'm concerned about my health because I don't like I said, it affects me physically. I don't feel good ever. Like not just like mentally, but like physically, I'm just like my body does not feel like it used to. I just feel kind of sick all the time. And I was like, that's not normal. And I'm like, I know I need to get this checked out. And then it's crazy because then I'm like, but like I can't do it this day because I need to do this. And it becomes this whole thing. And then like life just gets in the way and it happens. And I don't want to like, my biggest fear is that I'm going to wake up one day and like regret not having like acted sooner. Like not having done the things that I wanted to do. But I'm just like, I don't know. I just kind of, I feel like I don't really know where to go from here.
It's tough because I feel like you've already gone so far in life now that it's kind of like
I think pride gets in the way though too, because like when
yeah.
you say that, like oh, you already go so far, and I'm like I think about that often. I'm like, okay, I did all the things that I never thought I'd do. I went to college away from home, and I basically moved out when I was 18, and I started building the life I wanted, and then I moved to Vegas, and that was scary, but I was like, but I did it, and then I was like, we moved here, and we've done this, and like so I pride myself in doing that, and like sometimes though I'm like I want to feel like safe and secure, and like I don't know what that looks like, and I'm like, what if we take step backwards? Like what if we don't? I'm afraid of like moving backwards in that sense, because then at that point it's like it becomes a pride thing of, it kind of sucks when you feel like you've moved really far in the right direction, but then you're just like, I need to take a step back. I need to, I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, that's tough. I mean,
It's tough.
sorry, I'm trying to put a
So it's just like tough
Good
tough
luck.
shit,
Tough
Sonny.
shit. Get your shit together. Sorry.
So are you sad? No. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough place to be, and I think a lot of it I know I can recognize as like it doesn't really matter what other people think of you. Obviously, you obviously want people to perceive you a certain way, and I think we've talked about this before on the podcast too. And I think I take way too much time thinking about how other people are, my perception or others' perception of me and like what I'm doing, and also just I have this crazy idea of what success looks like and what I thought I needed to do versus, I'm such a person where like there's steps, and they're moving this step forward, step forward, step forward. Like this is the natural path, but life is just not like that. It's life, like we said, it's not linear. Growth isn't linear. There are those steps back, and I think I'm so scared of taking a step back. I'm so scared that like it also comes down to decision making. I'm scared that I'm gonna choose wrong and like fuck up my own life. Like I'm like I don't want to screw like this up. I don't want to be the one, especially because I feel like in Vegas we had dreams of like, as silly as it sounds, like having our own apartment, of having our own place, and it's not the biggest or grandest, but it's ours. And like, so I think of that, and I'm like, I don't ever want to lose this. I don't want to lose what we have. And I spent a lot of time thinking about the possibility of like losing everything. There's actually a TikTok, that girl Bobby Altoff, she has like the really good podcast or whatever. She had Rainn Wilson on her podcast.
Yeah.
And I think she says, it might have been in that one or another one, but I'm pretty sure it's in this one. And she's talking about how she just never feels secure. She feels like it could all go away. She goes like, obviously like she's been able to like build this platform, but she goes, it could all go away. And like, that's what scares me. And I think like I finally like in Vegas, I didn't really feel like I had much to lose. Cause I felt like I lost a lot. But I feel like here I was like, I have everything to lose. And like, I don't want to lose those things. I mean, have you ever felt like that? Or you just, I feel like Caesar is like, you just go with the flow. Like, I always wonder if you like combat these feelings, if like you're actively feeling these, or like, do you have any negative feelings?
No, I do. I think most men would lie to themselves by saying that they don't ever have negative feelings. So whether it has to do with their life, maybe their job, or whatever the case is. But the way that, I personally combat them is by thinking about them, acknowledging them, and finding a solution to not think about them, and to not to not think about them. That's the wrong way to say it. But to not like to figure out why that like
why you're feeling that
why
way?
I'm feeling that way, because oftentimes it can actually be a it's like not your mind's playing tricks on you type of thing. It's a negative thought that can easily take over your life, right? And then you end up, down the wrong path. And in a lot, this is one of the reasons why a lot of men end up abusing drugs or alcohol or whatever the case is, in order to like kind of like numb that pain or whatever it is. And obviously there are legitimate reasons to, want to do that, especially if there's people that are dealing with like PTSD, or maybe they were abused at a young age or whatever it is. And like those sorts of things have helped people, but not in obviously the best way. But yeah, like obviously I acknowledge that like I have like what do you call them, like intrusive thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are not negative, or that are negative, but I think about them, and then I come to like realize like, oh no, like that's obviously not true about what I'm thinking, and I kind of psych myself out of it. Like I think of like whether it's through prayer or it's through I'm not ignoring it. That's the thing. That's not the wrong word. I'm definitely not ignoring it. I'm acknowledging that it's there. But just finding a solution to like combat that feeling, um, obviously some people go to therapy for these things, they have someone talk them through it, right? Oftentimes they have a significant other or a friend that they, trauma dump on them, things like that. But yeah, I think most people do have negative thoughts,
I mean, I know most people do have negative thoughts. I just think it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think like when you live life like this, it becomes very difficult. And for me, I'm like really trying to combat it, but I think there's not like an easy solution. There's no like, oh, just do this and you'll feel.
There's definitely not one size fits all solution to like dealing with that at all.
Yeah, because I'm just like I don't know. And the thing is, when I talk to people about it, like I've talked to like my mom and my sister or like other people, there's like it's gonna get better, and I'm like, I know this, but also I don't feel like it is. Like I want to believe it's gonna get better. And it's also like, this is so silly. It's an internal battle because I feel also insanely bad about like not being positive, about not keeping a positive mindset. I don't know. It's just such a struggle though. I want to be happy and I want to, enjoy this life. But it's just not as simple as that. But I do beat myself up because I don't want to be someone who complains or, just can't be satisfied with anything. But it's hard, especially because my name's Sunny. I'm supposed to be a happy person, So, yeah. I just think it's interesting, like, what do you even do to, like, what do you do to get out of it? And like you said, there's not really a one-size-fits-all solution. I try to think back for me, like, I try to think back to, I've made it through, like, 100% of the bad times that I've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
But what's often forgotten of those memories is, like, how the heck did I get out of it? Like, how the heck did, things get better? Because I remember times in my life where I just felt like this is awful. I don't think I'm ever going to feel better again. And obviously I did at one point. So it's just trying to remember, what did you do that got you out of a slump? Because it does feel like a slump too. It feels like I'm in this rut, And that's the worst place to be. It's like in a rut, And I don't know. I wish I had the answers, to all of this. All the questions I have, especially because I want to help people through this. I think, but like, I've definitely wanted to be more honest recently with like, this podcast is about growth, and it can be really hard to like try to grow when you feel this bad. Like, I think that's the reality of it, is like social media, there's a trend going like social media is fake. Here's the thing that I struggle with. And like, this is kind of like what I struggle with, but at the same time, like, you have to show up every day and keep going and kind of like hide that like, this is the pain that I'm feeling, and these are the scars that I wear. Because I don't know, it's what we hide from like the world. But I think this is an essential part of growth. It's acknowledging that, like, acknowledging how you feel, and keeping yourself accountable. That's what I'm trying to do. It's not easy. Even like today, like, we're filming this podcast right now and I'm exhausted, and I really wanted to, like, even this morning, we had to get up early because we were going to mass at 8:30 with like our friends, and I almost like texted at like 7:45, like, I'm not going because I'm so tired. And then like after we were, even like with me wanting coffee, I thought about like, I just want to go home and sleep. And then when we got home, I was like, oh, it'd be so easy to just be like, no, I don't want to film, and because I've done that. I was like, but then I think to myself, I was like, then I like start the week. I'm like, man, I wish I would have filmed this weekend because like I want to post stuff and I want to publish the clips and I want to interact with people online. And so then I like, so it's like really having to force the things that you want to like. I say force as if like I don't want to be doing this. I do want to do this, but sometimes I have to force myself to like get out of my slump. Because if I don't, I'll just keep not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll regret it every time the weekend ends. I'll be like, man, I wish I would have spent time doing this weekend. And I didn't because of whatever reason. But yeah, I just think, I mostly like want people to know that like it is like, it's not, I think that there's just portions of our life and I have to believe, as hard as it can be, I have to believe that this is just part of the process, like that there is something greater coming. I just have to keep going, and having the strength every day to do that is difficult, but I think it's possible. I just have to think, okay, I've made it through things that are way harder than this. How do I keep going?
Yeah.
Do you have any last thoughts?
I mean, I think probably the only thing I'd probably say is I think for the most part that we can often feel like we're only surviving, and we tend to forget in the places and scenarios and situations in our lives where we are thriving or currently are thriving, but we feel like we're always surviving and have always been surviving. So I think you just often have to remember, like, I'm doing well in certain areas, or I'm doing this one thing that I love to do, whatever it is in your life that you feel like is a good thing. Like those are, I think,
you have to hold tight to that.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I think that there will be times in your life though where you just are surviving. And I think you have to figure out how you bridge the gap to like, not just survive, but also be able to enjoy your life. And I think it's also, in our situation, for one, like we have constraints. One is like, we're trying not to spend a whole ton of money because we're trying to save and we're trying to be financially responsible, and we only have, so much money. So it means like sometimes we can't do the things, we'd want to do, but what can we do that'll still bring us joy? And how do we make time for the things that'll bring us joy and make us remember like the life outside of survival,
Mm.
And I mean, again, it's not an easy thing. Like I talk about it as if it is, but clearly that's where I've been struggling. Like I can understand what I should be doing, but again, when you're in this mindset of I'm just trying to survive right now, everything else can wait. It's hard. But yeah, that has been this week's episode of the Growing Together podcast. We're so happy if you made it to the end of the episode. If you ever have anything you'd like for us to talk about, anything you want us to share our experience on, please comment on this YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube. Leave a review if you're watching on any other podcast streaming platform. But that has been Growing Together with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
We hope to see you again next week.
See you guys later.